Hey, this is Chris Jericho, and you're listening to the Shout It Out Loudcast. They're going to give you a reason to live, make you feel like you're the king of the mountain. And when it's all said and done, they're going to dance all over your face. Oh, yeah! We got some good-looking girls! Oh, yeah!
And reports tonight on how destruction is impacting the campus community.
Names of O'Hara Hall, Skid Row, T-Zone, Banff.
Badass motherfuckers.
Somph, sit on my face.
Drinking like fucking ass pre-gaming, as we called it. What is this dorm damage bill on our tuition statement?
Dorm damage?
Well, we only broke like 3 chairs and 4 desks this month.
Is that a positive thing? That's right. We're back with another episode of Dorm Damage, the show where anything and everything is on the table and the table gets smashed. This is episode 95, and people, we have a guest here this week that is responsible for most of the 35-year friendship that Zeus and I have, responsible for endless conversations, sound bits, quotes, clips, everything. The man behind the Jerky Boys is with us this week, the one and only Johnny Brennan. What's up, brother?
Hey, how's it going, guys? How's everything?
Everything.
I'm
great,
waiting
man.
for you to go, hey, what's up there, fruitcake? I'm looking for
what do you say there, fruitcake?
So here's the thing, guys. Behind the scenes, obviously our sense of humor, we drop Jerky Boy comments constantly now going on 7 years on this podcast. To be able to finally talk with Johnny and get him to come on the show. But not only that, he's been kind enough. He's like, give me a call. He wants to feel us out and see, do I want to talk to these guys? I can't tell you what a thrill it is to talk to him and find out how down to earth and how cool he is. But every second he says something, I feel like I'm waiting for a skit to come out or one of his comments, or my mind goes to one of the great fucking tracks that he has on his albums. And it's been incredible. You guys will see what I mean. When you hear Johnny talk, you're like, oh, he's doing a roofing bit. Oh, he's doing fucking fall down the stairs and bring my shoes. It's been an incredible thrill to talk to you prior to getting here. Now that we have you here, and one of the things I want to ask you again, but this time on the record, one of the first things I want to ask you is, we said to you, like, I feel bad. Like, I don't want to do your impressions back to you. Like, but that's all we do. Me and Tom do them.
All
but
day.
How does that feel for you when you have people going, hey, what's up there, fruitcake? Hey, what's up there, Slappy? Whatever.
I can't tell you. I mean, it's amazing. Don't forget now, you're going on, this is 5 decades now, the Jerky Boys. And it's an amazing thing. I love it because it comes from all different walks of life. I've got friends that I've made and people that you'd never, and people that I've heard of that are huge fans. I mean, anyone from Russell Crowe to Yngwie Malmsteen, the guitar player. So I mean, Sheryl Crow actually said, she came up to me at the Grammys and she said, Johnny, you know what? You are my bus music. So, I mean, how cool is that? I mean, so because that's great. And I still talk about that to this day, because that's one of the coolest things that, because, here you got a big star and on the bus, they don't listen to music. They listen to the Jerky Boys. But I get that from every band you can imagine. You go back through history here. You got Sublime, you got Green Day, any band that you can name. And the Jerky Boys has been somehow interwoven or part of it. And don't forget, years ago, I was on the charts with these guys. I was literally on the charts with some of the biggest bands that ever were in the rock and roll game. So when people come back to me with, hey, Johnny, hey, Rubberneck, what's up there, Sizzle Chest? It means the world to me, because these are characters that I created and people freaking love them.
Yeah, Johnny. So Zeus and I met in college, 1991. 2 things brought us together. The band Kiss and Jerky Boys. We had
That's
the cassette.
Awesome.
We had the cassettes, and this is 91. Obviously, this is pre-internet, pre-smartphone, pre-everything. We put the cassette in, And I hate to sound melodramatic, but it literally changed our fucking lives, dude. I mean, we couldn't get enough, and then we start going down the rabbit hole with like Red and the 2 Bar and all that stuff. And how does something like that? I mean, it's such a snapshot of a time that we'll never have again, because you can't do the Jerky Boys now anymore. You can't. It can't exist really.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, I can still do the Jerky Boys, but that's a whole different ball of wax. I mean, I just did my my album, my most recent album, and I released it right at the beginning of 2021, and I named it the Jerky Boys after its namesake that came out 30 plus years before. And what do you think happened the next day? It was #1 on Apple, iMusic, all of these different platforms. It was #1. And in the next couple of days after that, it was dragging all my other albums back up the charts again.
Yep.
So the Jerky Boys, but you're right. It wasn't the same. And the medium, everything I did was completely different. I did a lot of it in the car because of all the wacky shit that was going on at the time. It was the COVID deal, and it was just a lot of different things going on. But you're right. When I had to make Jerky Boys 2, for example, which is one of the greatest comedy albums. It is actually one of the top 5 comedy albums in history. But when I had to make that record, we needed, like, I don't even remember the number, but it was like 14 or 15 skits, because I still had some left over from the bootleg, but I still had to come up with some new bits that I say, you know what, let me, and I think I sat down and did 14 or 15 cuts. Kamal and we sat down. I believe some of it was in Florida, some of it may have been in New York, but it's like instantly sit down, play and record, boom boxes going, the speaker phone's going, and it was 1, 2, 3, 4 and I never did 2 of anything. It was 1 of this, 1 of that, 1 of this, and I swear to God, must have had the whole thing together in less than 3 hours, and it was all done and ready to go. So the difference now, that was Jerky Boys 2, and you're talking 35 whatever it was years ago.
Yeah.
Now with the one I recorded in at the beginning of 21, the end of 2020, I must have had to do anywhere between 10 and 30, maybe 25 or 30 phone calls before I would get somebody to have this
engage.
Engage. And it wasn't done with my boom box. It was done with 2 phones. So it was done with cell phone and a phone that I had a guy of mine in Long Island who's really good with all this stuff. He jerry rigged the phone so that I could have incoming, outgoing, and the phone would tape anything coming in, going out. Mm-hmm. And that's how I put together the latest album. And, a lot of people wouldn't know that. And if I, didn't say anything, but it's a very interesting point you make. It's the world is not the same. And people, the one good thing I guess the Jerky Boys has going for it is because everything was bang, 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 bang. Everything was fast. Even no matter what character you pick, everything was fast. And the attention span today seems to be like anywhere between 5 and 8 seconds. Mm-hmm. So if you're not hitting them fast, it's like boom. And everything today is in the phone. So if you're not hitting them fast, it's scroll, 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 scroll. People don't stick around. So it's pretty amazing, but you're right. It's not the same, and it doesn't feel the same, but the comedy, that particular brand, that Jerky Boys humor is like nothing else. Nothing else has ever been like it.
No, we talked a little bit about this, and there have been a lot of imitators. It's not the same fucking thing. I find a lot of the humor is the other people on the other side, bewilderment or the exasperation or they're like the one specific. And I need our audience knows this. I use 2 parts of this. So every time I say, catch us on YouTube, I always play the Saul's Nude Beach Lady, where she goes, you do. And then the other part where you're like, what's your name? And you're like, Saul. and she
Stop.
can't fucking get it. And she's like,
Stop.
Star? So when I'm like, give us one of these 5-star reviews, I always
Right.
play the clip of her going, Star? Yeah. So
and you could tell in her voice she was a lovely old lady.
Oh, totally.
so I mean, this is the thing that's been keeping me up for 35 years and stuff.
Yeah.
Always wanting to ask you these questions. That specific fucking lady, this somebody's mom. Did you know what's the background? Is this a friend of yours that you fucked with? Or like,
see?
Because that fucking lady, I felt like you should call her back after you hang up. And
I think it's an
your son-
insulting thing.
Right.
And he'll hear
Right.
from me. Don't you
Right.
worry about that. Like,
Don't
we
you
know it
worry.
inside out.
Yeah, don't you worry about that. But so here's the beautiful thing. That I got a handful throughout the Jerky Boys, couple of years there. I got a handful of inside jobs.
Okay.
So
People telling you call this person?
Well, but it wasn't just regular people off the street or fans. They were fans, but they were in the industry. So this guy Jim, and if you know, I never refer to him. Yeah, it's always with a B.
Yeah,
always with a B.
We love that.
Jim around.
Yeah. Even my hats, I made hats for Jim. Gimb. So, and the funny thing is, I think it was Mariah Carey. She a lot of people they're bewildered, but about that skit and what is up with that guy's name, but. Mariah, like being around equipment and music and writing and doing all these things, she knew instantly what that was. And she said to me, I was filming her video in Puerto Rico. She was shooting Honey, and I'm one of the gangsters in the Honey video. So she asked me, she said, Johnny, I have a question. And I said, yeah. And she goes, in the Sal's Nude Beach skit, she was like, Jim? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, that was an edit, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I must have tried. I swear to God, we went to lunch, came back, and I must have tried for another couple of hours to get that as clean as I could. But we were not allowed to use last names. Yeah. So I don't even remember what his last name was, but it began with a B. So no matter what I tried to do, I couldn't get rid of the B. So then when it was there, it became like the biggest hit. Everybody loved that, the B.
Yeah,
so,
Jim.
So now his name is Jim. So, but anyway, that's a funny part of the whole deal. But every now and again, another great one that, like you're saying, that's an inside job is Juggy Gales. If you guys,
I think I know that one.
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
Juggy Gales is one of the all-time greatest Jerky Boys phone calls, hands down. But if Juggy Gales is also another inside job. You're familiar with the Jackie Gleason show, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So you remember the episode with the Hucklebuck and Norton? They trying to teach him how to do the dance, the Hucklebuck.
Yeah.
So the Hucklebuck is what the Juggy Gales Jerky Boys call is all about. So it turns out I was doing commercials for Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, and the guys in the control room, they had an inside job for me. Mike, my buddy Mike, he says, Johnny, he says, we got something. You're gonna love this. And he explained to me who he was. His name is Juggy Gales. And back in the 50s and throughout, I guess, the 60s, he was one of the greatest. Maybe even before the 50s as well. One of the greatest producers and guys in the music industry. Sure. So he was a big deal, this guy. So he was responsible for this dance song called the Hucklebuck. Now you have to keep in mind, anyone you could think of, and even as big as Frank Sinatra, recorded the Hucklebuck. Mm-hmm. So it was a major to do. So, and this guy Juggy Gales was responsible for it. But they told me the scoop and the story, and there was a guy, like there is all throughout the world, people that don't like to work, they just like to copy and steal. So there was a guy all the way back then, his name was Lipinski, and this guy kept saying that he was the guy that was responsible for the Hucklebuck. So now keep in mind, Juggy Gales is an old man. He's probably in his late 80s or not early 90s.
Oh, God.
And they gave me his phone number to his house.
No. Oh, God.
and they told me that story about Lipinski. And so that's all I had to go on. They told me this guy Lipinski kept trying to steal the idea of the Hucklebuck, but it was Juggy Gales that was the one responsible for the success of the Hucklebuck. So that's all I needed. And if you, for your listeners, I won't even ruin it. Yeah. They go out and listen. It's Juggy Gales, Jerky Boys, Juggy Gales, one of the greatest Jerky Boys tracks of all time. But it goes on, and you know, I call him at the house, and his wife answers the phone, and unbeknownst to me, I had no idea, you know, because this is an inside job, and I'm like, hey, Juggy, and she's, who is this? Who's calling? And you could tell they're very old people, and I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for Juggy. Put Juggy on. And then I start calling her every name in the book. And it's like, hey, Bottlenose, put Juggy on. And then and the whole time, it's funny because if you listen close, Juggy Gales was on the extension. He's listening to me call his wife every name in the book. And then when I get Juggy on the line, I don't even want, you got to go listen to that call. It's one of the, and it was like magic. It was just like magic. Every road I went down, I'm telling him, I Juggy, Jesus Christ, don't you remember me and you back in the old days at the Brill Building? And Juggy's there, and he's like, yeah. I said, don't you remember me and you with that fucking Sinatra? And he's like, oh yeah. And it goes on, and then I'm talking about Tony Bennett, and then but it goes into this whole crazy off the wall shit. Yeah. But you got to hear it. It's called Juggy Gales, and that was another inside job. And I think there may have been like maybe 2 or 3 other inside jobs like that.
Yeah. So speaking of the Juggy Gales thing, that kind of leads me to like something else I've always been interested in. When you make these calls, okay, you can tell, you kind of can get a feel pretty quickly about where this is going to go. Either the person knows they're being fucked with and they're playing along, or the person really thinks that you are Frank Rizzo or Saul Rosenberg and they're being, what do you find, and are you prepared for both when you make the call?
Yeah, since the very beginning, this was the MO. Since the very beginning, if I felt even for a second that somebody was like, and we got a lot of that after the first Jerky Boys album hit.
Yeah.
We got it because now the Jerky Boys, the Jerky Boys was already around the globe famous with the bootleg. Because if you think back to those times, there was no computers yet, there was no internet yet. I shouldn't say not computers, but there was none of this what we have today. Right. Nothing. All you had back then was cassette tapes and vinyl and shit like that. So, because you're going back 70s and 80s. So, you know, you think about it, if I got the slightest inkling that a person was a fucking idiot, or they were trying to, they may have heard the Jerky Boys and they're like trying to be funny because they think it's a prank phone call, and didn't get many of them. But if I did get them, it was a dump out, instantly dumped out.
Okay.
Because that shit's not funny.
Right.
There's nothing funny about that.
Right.
A good example about that is if you take my Saul Rosenberg from Jerky Boys 3, where he goes to get a chainsaw and he falls and breaks his leg. Right?
We were thinking of that one. The lady's like all into the chainsaw, even though you cut your leg off or whatever.
Right. And if you listen to that skit. Yeah. So when I fall and I break my leg over the dog, I trip over the dog, you know, in my mind, like, you know, people say to me all the time, they're like, Johnny, how the fuck did you not lose it, man? When you did that, you fell down. How did you not? And my answer to them is because it's not funny. I said, you know, I just broke my fucking leg. There's nothing funny about that. And in my mind, these things are happening in real time.
Right.
So if I said that, oh my God, I could see the bone sticking out. And like, when I'm doing this, I'm not sitting there saying, ha, 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 ooh, ha, ha, I'm doing a prank phone call. None of that shit is up here. Yeah. And as goofy as it sounds, it's like, I want you to see this little motion picture that I got clicking in my head. So I just keep going. You know, my leg is busted, the bone's sticking out. I'm up in my chair and I'll just wait till my son gets home. And so, but but now there have been calls where I've got characters on the other end of the line, and I know that these fuckers they're funny. Like, for example, Big Hawk.
Oh,
I don't know, well,
I got you. The Cornwall Dragons.
Yeah.
It's one of us.
Yeah, big Hawk.
Big Hawk.
Yeah, big cock. I didn't say big cock. What's the matter with you?
Yeah.
What are you? And I love the way he goes like this. Come on, what are you playing with me or what? That's what he's. But
he's got legs like animals.
Yeah, I'm like fucking animals. I put my head through walls for you. So you know what? See, and so that's a perfect example. Perfect example. Here I'm trying to do this character Silverman, which is a Frank Rizzo, type voice.
Yeah.
But I'm doing Silverman, who's a sports agent.
Yeah.
And he's calling because he wants to play professional football. And as soon as I heard this guy, this is when you know when things are just right. You just shut your fucking mouth.
Yep.
And this guy was great, and I just let him go. And what I would do is I started feeding him, and I was like, with the little quick quips, I was like, Big Hawk, yeah, I heard. No, I didn't say Big Cock. Or no, I didn't say that. And and people, when they listen to that guy, you walk away from that going, man, that guy was fucking awesome. And that's the beauty of the Jerky Boys. It's you know what it is? It's sketch comedy. I think it was the New York Times many moons ago. They said it was coined as improvisational theater of the mind. Spontaneous.
Wow. Yeah, good way of describe it.
And it was just spontaneous. Like I would come up and people say to me all the time, like, what the hell? Where are you coming? What the hell was that thing that you said? And, it was funny. Seth MacFarlane, he hit me with a lot of that shit. Like, Johnny, where the hell do you come up with this stuff? If you see in Family Guy, every time Peter falls down, what does he do? He does my bit from the Chainsaw Shock, where Sal's just laying there. He's going, I
do that to Tom sometimes. I'll go,
right. Right. And I'll never forget, I met Seth Flute in New York, and we were in a session in New York City. This is when he was very young. This is a long time ago, probably 20 years ago. And he says to me, he goes, Johnny, he says, I just have to ask you, like, where does that come from? Where do you come up with that? You're just laying there and you just, and just the constant, because, and again, it gets back to what I was saying to you guys, because in my mind, that shit is what just happened.
Right.
If to me, it has nothing to do with prank phone calls. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, we get it.
I mean it in a way like there's a fucking little movie going on here, and you got to get in, you got to get on the train, and fucking you got to grab it. You know what I mean?
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say. So I think of Big Hawk.
Yep.
I think of the unemployed painter.
That's what I was just going to ask.
It's the back and forth. I think of Saul's fucking nude beach. The person is just as funny, but another favorite of mine, and a lot of people didn't know this one, and that is Jack's Pickle from Peanut Pumps.
Yeah, Jack's
fucking immigrant poor guy on the other line was.
Yeah.
What was he saying to you? I pickle they?
Yeah.
What the fuck is?
Yeah.
What the fuck was that? I
see that. That's another one. Now, Jack's Pickles and Penis Pumps, so that's what people, that's why so many millions of people around the world, they love the Jerky Boys because it's not like anything else. It's absurd. It's chaotic. It makes no sense whatsoever. Sometimes it's wonderful. Sometimes it's warm. Sometimes it's, but it's always fucking, it's on the money. And like that guy you're talking about, he's just trying to sell fucking tomatoes.
Yeah, but you're going to give him for a little small sack of potatoes in the end, and you get a deal. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, see that? Smart guy. We're doing business here.
Yeah, fucking one is legendary.
But he's like, you could tell he's getting a little pissed off because starting to take deep breaths, and he's all excited about the prices we're talking about. And then he says, I want they. I want they. And then he's telling
I don't know what kind they.
Yeah. And he says, what kind, size? And it's like, I pickle they. You know, and it's like, you can't make that shit up.
No, you fucking hit him back with the fucking a small point. This is small what? You go out of nowhere. You go, yes.
Yeah. You know,
yes. And then he just goes, okay, we got a deal out of nowhere.
As a matter of fact, some of these things are so small, you may not be able to see them with the naked eye. You may need a penis pump to see these damn things. And people are like, what the fuck was that? Like, you know, but that's the beauty of the Jerky Boys. It's out of left field. It makes no fucking sense. And that guy is brilliant. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't think you could get this anywhere else but in New York.
Yeah, because you have enough immigrants that can get around where they are, but they still don't pick up on the American. Like, is this guy fucking with me? They don't get it, so they keep it going. What was the other one? What was the one? Was it the starter motor? You call the guy, and the guy's like,
starter
and you eat the was it the eat the on and it's like
no, that was the insulator.
Rollin. Was that Rollin guy? Rollin. What? Rollin.
Yeah.
No, when he's like, you're benching 350 pieces? What the fuck?
Yeah. Pieces. What the fuck? You pounds, baby. Pounds.
And then I told you 10 liver lips. Yeah. The guy goes, 10 liver lips.
And I told you 10 liver lips. You know, funny thing, when my bootleg, the Jerky Boys bootleg was out on the street, right? Mm-hmm. And this is in the early 80s. And that liver lips line, that the brothers that made Christmas Vacation, the guys that they were all huge fans on the set of Christmas Vacation. So the next time you watch Christmas Vacation, look closely and you'll see Chevy Chase. He's doing the liver lips line, eat my road rage, liver lips, and all this other stuff.
That's right.
And even at the end, when he finds the letter between the car seat, they do a Saul Rosenberg. And he's knocking on the door. And he's like, "Hi, I'm sorry. It was in the seat. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And so, you know, the Jerky Boys goes so far back, man. And you know, Hollywood, funny enough, Hollywood was one of the first towns to grab onto the Jerky Boys stuff, you know, over 35, 40 years ago. They were passing around the bootleg all those years ago.
Wow. Yeah. The other one that talking about interaction that makes the call that much better. I mean, the call itself is great, but Sparky the Clown. When that guy is like, well, I don't do that. I do a magic show and balloon sculpture. I do a children's magic. He's very, very serious. Yeah. And he's like, well, yeah, you know, we got a terrace, so people are going to be swinging from the terrace. And then all of a sudden, we
got a little scene going on.
And then all of a sudden, the guy's like, well, when do you need me? Like, you just said you weren't like, those are the kind of calls that I make me just, they reel you in. Like you said, it's like theater of the mind. It's like, I cannot believe they're engaging right now.
You know what, if you think about it, right, when you first heard these calls, you think about it, you're probably listening to them, and in your mind, which is what I really wanted everybody to do, you're picturing probably the same thing that was running in my mind.
Oh, totally.
You know? Because I was trying to paint this picture. I said, I wanted everybody to know that this guy Sparky, what do? You fucking come, you throw fire bombs, you got all kinds of shit. And then when we put him in the movie, you know, in the Jerky Boys movie, he comes out with these two machetes, and he's got these two big knives. And the Vinny Pastore, Big Pussy from The Sopranos, he takes out his gun right away, and he's fucking shooting up the joint because he's afraid of clowns. You know?
It's a one all the way around. A couple things I want to ask you now. And this is stuff from the kids that we were way back then. Okay. One of them is, did you work, because it was on our tape with that John Musacchia guy. Was that part of your group? No. Nothing to do with you.
No. So
that was on our tape along with the red stuff. And
Howard Stern put a lot of stuff. It wasn't Howard Stern. It was his people. I think the people that worked for him, they gathered up what was ever hot at the time. when I came out, there's actually, I think, one or two calls on the Versace tape that I'm on as a woman. So I'm doing
that's why I thought it was you.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I need to use the phone. That's you, right?
Right. No, I'm doing the screaming and the yelling. Yeah,
like he beats his wife up in the background, and he's like, oh, "I need your fucking help." That's why I thought he was part of your group.
No, I just knocked this fucking bitch cold with the lamp and blah blah blah.
We were just talking about now I get you on the line. Now I need you to be a witness. Like
So, but again,
take care of your marriage.
Keep in mind now the same thing held true for Kamal and the Jerky Boys. There's a couple of skits that, when I was putting these records together to go out to the masses, that it was just stuff I'm not going to be putting on. I pretty much use everything from the bootleg, so the fans got what they wanted. But there was a couple of skits that really people didn't know about, and they weren't the kind of like creative kind of humor. They were just like real shitbowl kind of humor, like and
the pizza guy. That's not on there. That was on the bootleg.
No. That's a great call. The pizza.
I'm going to bomb this place.
No, that's a great call. That is a Jerky Boys call. I believe it's on the first record, and it is one of the all-time.
Fuck, did you not get in trouble for that though?
All-time greats. Listen, you got
to
think again. This gets back to what we talk about with the Jerky Boys. Why it's almost like that Simpsons thing. The Jerky Boys is always way out in front of shit. You know that we were talking about bombing all this stuff and we were doing Middle Eastern characters before they even bombed the first time on the Trade Center.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
This stuff was out years before that, and you got Kamal's doing the shut the fuck up, and he's like, sir, how can I help you? My wife, my daughter is throwing up, and you're talking about coupons. And that's called Jerky Boys Terrorist Pizza.
Yes. Oh, I forgot. So you did, because I'm always thinking and we had this conversation before, Johnny, and I had asked you all these fucking calls. Did you ever get in trouble for anything? And you told me one story, and I want our listeners to hear it about the butt nut.
The piano tuner.
Oh, I love
Eric.
Eric, the butt nut.
Eric. It's funny, when he answered the phone, as soon as he answered the phone, that's what I'm talking about, the Jerky Boys magic. I said, I'm looking for, is Eric there? Whatever the hell I said. And he goes, this is me. And as soon as he said that, I said, the butt nut. And I swear to God, it literally just came out of my mouth, and to this day, people fucking go nuts for that. But anyway, that was the whole thing about my Rottweiler in the piano.
He stripped his fucking teeth.
He's stripping his fucking teeth there, Eric. He's a little too tough for me. And this guy's like, I'm not on call or something like that. And he goes, and your dog is stuck. Your Rottweiler. And he's like, I'm sorry. And it was just, again, one of the classic calls. But anyway, you know what the great thing is? You and actually us all talking about this, going out to new audiences, which I love, because then they can go look it up.
Oh, absolutely.
When they hear this stuff, it's like it's amazing. But what your question was with the
anybody
Rottweiler,
ever got back after you?
Yes.
Doing these calls.
Right. Eric was the one guy that came out many moons ago, right at the very beginning, and he said that he was the guy. He was Eric on that. And now keep in mind, this is a long time ago. There was no this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
Well, so what was that back in those days? They had waves that they could say that you could test voice analysis.
Yep.
And it was more accurate than a fingerprint.
Wow. This
is what they told me back in the day. Anyway, so they said that they never proved it. The guy got $200. And so the record company gave him $200, and I think that was it, or an extra 50 for his favorite charity or something. But that was the end of it. And for the most part, people, when they found out and the clearances had to be gotten, you see on the first Jerky Boys, a lot of that was from the bootleg. Most of it, all of it, was from the bootleg. So we didn't have any clearances. You see what I'm saying? So. Yeah. and you're talking now, it's almost 40 years ago. So you didn't have any clearances, but that was, I guess, the beauty of everything too. But see, I still do it. Like, I don't worry about the clearances. You go and you do the job, and then afterwards you hope that you got good enough people around you. And Harry, I'm sure you guys have heard his name more than once. Harry Getzoff. He was the manager at the time, and he had like a 99.9% success rate of getting all of these clearances. So, wow. but that was the only guy that came forward and tried to throw a little hissy fit. So they threw him a couple of, like, $200. You gotta come forward. You gotta prove all sorts of damages and how did the Jerky Boys damage you? It's a whole fucking rigmarole.
And that you're identifiable, like that people can pick up that that's really you.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's hard to pick out. I mean,
well,
I get it.
Yeah. It's like they gotta prove that first that it's them on the tape. So it was, but it was not even we really didn't even give it a second thought. Not that it really, bother us.
Yeah. So one name we haven't brought up yet. We have to talk about Jack Torse. Okay.
Yeah, Jack.
Because not only are those calls legendary, but the stuff that comes out of his mouth and the reaction, and I'm particularly talking about when he talks about pulling large pieces of furniture from his ass.
Yeah.
And that girl on the other end just getting the biggest kick out of it. Jack is one of the greats.
Yes,
he is. Mariah Carey actually coined it. She says Jack Torse is the original diva. And so think about that. That's how many moons ago Jack Torse. I was doing the gay stuff way before it was a thing to do. Yeah. When I was doing it, it was very taboo.
Oh yeah.
Very taboo. And I'll give you a good example. I was doing commercials for Anheuser-Busch Budweiser. And now this is all the way in 1997, I believe. And they had me do a bunch of gay commercials because they were huge fans of Jack.
Okay.
So they loved the gay character. So I did a bunch of killer commercials using my character Jack Torse, and they focus grouped them at Limelight in New York City, the nightclub.
Okay.
And they did it with the gay community. And the gay community absolutely went nuts. They said these commercials are the funniest things we ever heard. And they had full support from the gay community. But guess what? At the end of the day, Budweiser, they still were afraid to pull that and go with my gay character.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So, and that was 97.
Yeah, right.
So can you imagine? I was doing my gay stuff when I was a kid, 20 years before that. So, it was a crazy deal, but Jack Torse to this day now is considered the original diva. And that's why you see everybody and their mother, I forget their names. That guy Gunn, everything he did was basically Jack Torse. But, their argument would be, well, he's gay, Johnny. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So what? So I don't count, know, my character Jack was the fucking greatest gay fucking dude to ever hit the circuit. So, but I'll never forget that guy. I forget his first name, Gunn. He had the gray hair and he used to do all the stuff on the cable networks. And
so he was the model guy, like the model.
Was it Tim Gunn or something?
Yeah,
like that?
I think so. So he would talk like this. Yes.
Right. And he was trying on a jacket on the show and he opens the jacket and he goes, "Ooh, holy, all right." And he goes, I love it. And I was like, oh my God, if that's not a Jack Torse ripoff, I mean, and then you had people out there going bing bong, doing my Jack Torse bing bong, and
that's the Fat Muffin Man.
Yeah,
bing bong, goodbye, sir.
Yeah, yes, hello, bing bong. Jack Torse
love the Fat Muffin Man.
Yeah, are you the Fat Muffin Man? Well, I hope not. Yeah,
that poor guy's like, what the fuck? Someone just called me a big. How like? Me, my friend. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Jimmy, who's a friend of ours from college. Loves to while we're talking in the middle of it, just interrupt us like he did. How is he anyway? How is that big muffin ass bastard?
How is that big muffin ass bastard? You know what the funny thing was?
Man.
My character Jack Torse. when I came up with that character, I was literally a kid, and I just thought, how funny would it be? Like he was just a very, very lovable, but very obnoxious, and
Yeah.
everything that anyone ever did was like just second nature, old hat. If Jack Torres, like everything was beneath him, but in a very loving kind of way.
Yeah.
And that's why she says to me, like, do I do runway? And I go, oh, a runway is just old hat to me, honey.
Yeah.
And just Jack Torres is like, he's one of a kind. But so many people to this day are fucking nuts over that character.
Yeah, you did the same thing to that lady. You cut her off, and you just let me tell you what I really do.
Yeah.
It's like
I soak myself in lamp oil.
I use the burn man. Just fucking absurdity of it all.
You know what? Here's a great one. Remember when you started the conversation? You started the conversation and asked me when people come up to me, and that's probably one that I should study and try to remember. You don't know how many people come up to me and say that line from Jack. I'm only burnt about the face, neck, breast,
chest, and head area.
Right. And I have to study it because otherwise I'll get it wrong. And let me tell you something. If I fuck up one of my quotes, my fucking fan base goes nuts. And they literally say to me, Johnny, dude, don't do the fucking quotes if you don't know them.
And that's fuck off.
No, it's funny. They say that to me.
No, but I'm just saying, like, settle down for them.
Yeah.
But, hey, you know who else that ripped off? And I'll tell you because I used to watch it. I thought it was funny. That Stefan character on Saturday Night Live is fucking Jack Torres. Definitely.
The Bill Hader character.
Oh, today's character, the place to visit is this and that. Like, that is a big time Jack Torres ripoff.
Oh, is that new? I haven't watched that.
No, it's pretty old. It's Bill Hader does it. He used to show up on Weekend Update and he would give like a nightlife update about all the clubs to go to.
It's Jack Torres. Watch Stefan on SNL and tell me that's not Jack.
So what years are you talking about?
Oh, we're talking about 10 years back, but
probably within the last 10 years.
It's one of the most popular fucking characters.
Yeah. No, I've never. See, that's what I'm telling you. Yep. So many people have capitalized on my characters over the years. I mean, I wish I had fucking royalties for all of this shit.
I was just going to say that.
You might look into that one, buddy, because that sounds like that was directly from Jack.
Oh, yeah. There's no, I don't doubt it. That's why I asked you how far back it was. Let me tell you something. It is what it is. But, the one thing I find really unfortunate with Hollywood, there's no originality there. None. Nobody comes up with anything original. They don't come out with ideas. The Jerky Boy, I don't care what anybody says. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. You can never say the Jerky Boys didn't come out of left field and took the world by storm.
Oh, because absolutely. 100%.
There was nothing like it. Eddie Murphy's brother was in my movie. He played a guard in my movie, a security guard. And when I was in prison in my movie. And Eddie Murphy said, before this Frank Rizzo guy, you just had a bunch of comedians standing up in front of a red brick wall telling jokes. Right. And then all of a sudden this Frank Rizzo guy comes in and just takes the world by storm. And that's the Jerky Boys in a nutshell. So, that's why Mariah Carey said Jack Torres is the original diva. And when you see people, like I just said, this Tim Gunn, now their argument back to me would be hysterical. They'd say, well, Johnny, he's gay. And they would say to me, well, what leg do you have to stand on? And I would say, well, what about Jack? What it doesn't count anymore because I'm not a fucking fruitcake, But anyway, but no, the gay community loved Jack Torres, and it's always been a really, it's been a great character. My two favorite characters to do, Jack Torres, the gay character, and big old badass Bob, the truck driver.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Those are my two favorite characters to do.
Johnny, back when you guys started, how was your relationship with Kamal, and how did that evolve, and how did you guys know what, like, okay, this call I'm going to do this character, this call Kamal's going to do that character. How did that evolve, and where's your relationship with Kamal now, if you're okay to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was not really something that was discussed. Like
Okay.
I did lots of the I did before, Kamal wasn't even involved yet when I was laying these things down. And Kamal would come over every night and say, "Come on, man, let's do some more." Because when he heard them, he thought it was the greatest thing that he ever heard as far as comedy goes. And I actually thought that he was putting me on. I thought he was actually making fun of me
Yeah.
because everybody that was over at the house was hysterical. And then Nick Kamal's on the ground, literally crying. His eyes were crying. And I said, "What the fuck?" And he goes, "That is the funniest thing I ever heard, ever." So then Kamal would come over every night, and he's like, "Come on, man, let's do." And I had to get up. I was in the construction business. I was hanging off buildings for a fucking living. I remember going to work hallucinating because Kamal had me up all fucking night, and here I'm hanging off a building 60 stories up, and I'm literally fucking hallucinating. But so anyway, as time went on, we would do a few during the night. We'd stay up. We'd have a few glasses of wine. Who the fuck knows, a few beers, and we would do this and do a couple of that, and so that's really how it got started. And I used to tell Kamal the funniest thing I used to love with him, and was it used to make me fucking, I was die laughing, and people always says to me, "Well, you never, Johnny, has never been a time I've ever seen you laugh, on the Jerky Boys." I said, "Well, that's because it's not a time to laugh,
Right,
There's
right.
plenty of times when I shut the recorder off that you'll hear me chuckle afterwards, but not during the bit." But anyway, so Kamal, it was just the way things broke down. It was like there was no talking about, "Hey, could you make 5 or 10 or 15 skits?" It was just, I always had so many skits,
Yeah.
and so that's how it was. Just, and then through the albums, we would pepper Kamal's tracks in there. And like I said, what was saying was what made me laugh so much with Kamal was he was 6'4" and he was 330 pounds. He
Oof.
was like a linebacker. He was a big motherfucker. And to hear this woman's voice come out of him, you guys are familiar with the dental malpractice,
Oh
right?
God, it's one of the best.
Right.
Louis Rocco. Yeah.
Right. Louis Rocco. One of my favorite one of my favorite calls. And if you listen to the records, you can hear. And I would say to Kamal, because we would lay on the rug in my bedroom and we would do this. And Kamal's like I said, a big ass fucker. And he'd be laying on his stomach and talking toward the boombox and the speakerphone at the same time. And I loved his yelling and screaming so much that I would tell him constantly, to scream, do more of it. So you'll see he's on the floor and I'm literally booting him up, kicking him in his ass. And if you listen to the dental malpractice, if your listeners listen to this, they'll go, "Oh my God, I hear it." I'm booting Kamal up the ass and I'm kicking him up the ass. And keep in mind now, he's in character.
Yeah.
So he's doing Tarbosh and he's talking to the lady, but I'm getting frustrated now because I want to hear more of that yelling and screaming. So I'm putting my fucking sneaker, like boot him in the ass, and he turns around in character and he talks to me away from the microphone and he says to me, "What?" He's talking to me in character. It's the funniest thing. But he talks away from the mic and he says, "What?" to me. And I'm like, scream.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's doing all that fucking yelling and right when Kamal did that, that's why even in the movie I said, "Dude, you gotta fucking do that," because he's such a big guy and that voice coming at him. And Kamal, he had that when he did Tarbosh. It was same thing. It was like that magic. It was like that. It was that magic, man.
I love that lady when she's like, "The Egyptian magician."
Yeah,
She's like so excited that
But wait a minute, go back, because that
No, I
dental
know.
malpractice
Go back
has
to
a
the
great
dental one.
fucking line
Yeah.
where
Right.
he repeats, he gives her phone number. She purposely gives it back wrong. And he's like, "Yes.
Yeah.
555-1248. Yes."
Right. That's when we got signed to Atlantic Records. So when we got signed to Atlantic Records, you had to obviously take out phone numbers and stuff. So, but the funny thing is, there was the other one with Kamal where he does Where he punches it, he punches his chest and it disappears into the crowd.
Oh yeah, that lady, yes,
right. And the other one with the mountain
cat, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. Well, you terrorize people with the mountain cat, okay?
Right. And she goes. You know what? I wouldn't bring the mountain cat in for the first time. So he goes, yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying. Even Tarbosh, it was so fucking believable, and it was in New York City. Right. So people are going, oh my God, I've got this fucking lunatic on the phone, this Indian guy who wants to come in and be part of this thing we're doing, and he's got a fucking mountain cat. I can only imagine what these people said after the phone call. And again,
which is incredible.
Right. That was the beauty of the Jerky Boys. You had all of these characters all over the place that people just fell in love with. And I believe the reason is because everybody knew a Frank Rizzo. Everybody knew a Kissel. Everybody knew,
forgot about that one.
And I mean, and people just, they really, the characters were very endearing. People really love, and to this day, I don't think I'd be here if the people still didn't feel.
Absolutely. Exactly.
They still feel about the Jerky Boys the way they did all those years ago. Hey, and now their children are grown up and their kids are now in their 30s.
My daughter knows and I go, doo, 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 doo.
Yeah.
She knows that in the car. Yes. She's 16 years old. What the fuck does she know that? But what I want to ask you is another one that is extremely legendary. And that is, and Radiohead took the name.
Yes.
Pablo Honey. Now, I think that's Kamal, right? That does that?
No.
That's you?
Yeah.
That's you doing Pablo Honey. Okay. So that's got to be somebody that you called and got.
Right.
Can you give us the background on that call?
Who is this?
That was a very long. That was one of the first calls, actually, and that was an inside job as well. That was a friend.
But that's
of a friend.
On 2. That's on 2, right?
Yeah,
it's on 2.
It was on the bootleg. I never used it for 1. And the reason here's a funny little tidbit. The reason I never used it is because I really didn't like it.
Oh.
So what I was doing. This goes to show you how the Jerky Boys. Everybody has something that they really like. Yeah. So my buddy who I grew up with since we were young guys, I'd say freshman year in high school, he was killed in a motorcycle accident back in 1987. Oh, but we used to do calls back in the 70s and stuff. And he came to this country from Cuba with his mom and his sister and his father. And he was a tremendous guitar player. At a very young age, he was a tremendous guitar player. So anyway, his mom was so amazing. Her voice was so distinctive. And I would always call him up on his answer machine and leave messages for him all the way back in the 70s. I'd be like, Henry, baby, what you doing? Henry? And he'd be like, could you stop doing that? Stop leaving those messages at my house, man. And so we would get into these fights and arguments. And I still have a tape of messages that I used to leave him. And so one day I said, you know what? I got to do Mrs. Casielas, and I got to use her as a character. And so I called a friend of a friend of a friend, this guy Pablo, and I just did this thing where I was in Florida and I was, or he was supposed to be going. You're going back, many decades. So, but again, the gist of it was that I'm, Mrs. Casielas, and I'm saying, and I'm like, Pablo, honey, please, honey, come to Florida. Please come to Florida. And then I start asking him if he's are you washing your ass and keeping your ass clean? And he's like, and all he says, Pablo, through the whole thing is, who is this? Who the hell is this?
Who the hell is this?
Right. And so I thought to myself, everybody was asking me to please put that on the first record. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And it's not that I didn't like it. It just, to me, it didn't have any substance. So anyway, people wrangled me enough. And I said, you know what I'm going to do just to shut everybody up? I'm going to start the second album off with Pablo Honey. Nice. So that's the first track on the second album. Yep. And I get a phone call at my house upstate New York. And my mother tells me, John, it's a phone for you. And some guys from the record company. So I answered the phone, and they're like, "Hey, Johnny, listen, we got some guys here, and they're wondering, would it be okay? They wanted to ask your permission if they could use your skit, Pablo Honey, to name their debut album in the United States." And I was like, yeah, I don't. What do they want to do? They just want to use and they're like, yeah, they just want to use to name their album Pablo Honey. And I said, absolutely, knock yourself out, have at it. So and so they were all happy. And I had no fucking clue who I was even talking to. I just knew that I knew I was talking to my record company. So next thing you know, they tell me this band, hey, you ever hear this Radiohead? And I'm like, who the fuck? I said, who the hell is fucking Radiohead? And these guys are getting very, very popular.
Yeah.
So then I still had no clue who this was. Then I start hearing whisperings, and then they tell me, yeah, the guys that those are the guys you said that they could. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I said, those guys are fucking incredible. I said, and next thing you know, so here's the fucking coolest, the icing on the cake. I get a plaque to hang on my wall, sent to me. It's sent to me from Billboard magazine, Jerky Boys #1 with Jerky Boys 2, and in second place, Radiohead with Pablo Honey.
Oh, no shit. That's awesome.
How fucking cool is that?
That's wild.
I still have that in my den. I still have that plaque hanging up.
That's fucking cool.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. That's what I was telling you before. A lot of people don't realize when I came out all the way back those years ago, I didn't have the luxury of being in a comedy section. I was being put. My albums were being put up against Green Day and Collective Soul, and I was running up the charts with guys that the Pearl Jam and the biggest bands in the business.
Yep. It's funny you say that because we are in college. By freshman year, we have your cassette.
Yep.
By the time we leave, by 95, we're like, dude, this Radiohead says Pablo Honey. There's no fucking internet or something. So we're like, where the fuck? Do you think they're doing Pablo Honey from the Jerky Boys? Like within our college life, you went from a cassette to one of the biggest bands naming something after the most craziest fucking skit. That's how big it got.
Right. And they loved. First of all, they were huge Jerky Boys fans, but they particularly loved that skit so much they named their debut album Pablo Honey. And I thought that, yeah. See, it's so funny when I talk a lot, I can't get that high. So if I give my voice a little bit of a rest, I can actually do the voice better. But that's shout out to Mrs. Casielas. But a great story in and of itself. A Cuban family, but escaping the whole Castro thing back in the 50s. But so it's just when you think about it, and look, I told you before about the band Sublime. Jerky Boys.
Yes.
There's just a thing that was made popular recently with Dave Grohl.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually videos of Nirvana, banging out all kinds of Jerky Boys lines. And then after 35 years, Dave Grohl sat down with his engineer, and his engineer surprised him. Well, I think the name of the track is called Rent. And before the track starts, you see Dave Grohl sitting there, and his engineer sitting next to him. And this is 30 plus years later, and he plays it, and it's my character. And I don't remember the skit. I think it could be Frank Rizzo. Open your fucking ears,
jackass.
Right, whatever the skit. I don't remember the skit. But Dave Grohl looks at his engineer and he goes, "Oh my God, the Jerky Boys!"
Nice.
And you can actually look that up. And
awesome.
That was just recently. So all of these guys, Grohl, Nirvana, you name the band. Oh, somebody sent me something recently from the band Alice in Chains.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, the lead singer, the
Lane Staley.
Yeah. Huge Jerky Boys fan, and they actually shared a video of him doing. I think he was doing my Sal Rosenberg character, and it was a shout out to the Jerky Boys. But it was such a wonderful time. It was almost like I hate to keep sounding sentimental.
No,
but
go ahead.
It was a magical time, man.
Yeah.
I was huge in the 80s, but it started to get that really gigantic appeal right at the same time grunge was coming in.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
all of these other things were happening. And
Pop culture changed. Pop culture changed. You were part of it.
And I had love from the 70s. I had love from the 80s. You know, Van Halen. Van Halen was one of the biggest Jerky Boys fans of all time. It just kind of permeated into the whole rock and roll world. Dimebag Darrell. I got shots of Dimebag he's wearing one of my very first T-shirts. You know, with Pantera. So think about how it got into everything, and then it wasn't now just in the music world. Now it's into World Wrestling Federation. It's into NFL. I don't know if you guys heard my Derek Jeter track with all about Derek Jeter, the New York Yankees baseball. Mm-hmm. So it worked its way into everything.
I got two more left. One is I want to see if you have any memories or recollection of the fucking angry camper dad and that poor guy Shelly that you kept calling his name purposely. Somebody's shitting in this laundry bag there, licking
the baseball bats and jagging him in.
Yeah, I don't know, Shelly. Shelly, I ought to come up there and beat that kid in front of you.
Yeah,
But that's a classic bit there. A lot of times, I'll pull shit that I did in my real life and I'll incorporate it into the skits. Like we had a roommate a long time ago and I used to shit in his laundry bag. So he used to keep his laundry bag. He used to keep his laundry bag in the corner of his room and it always smelled. It was fucking horrible. And we used to have to tell him, dude, get that shit, take that and fucking wash that shit. It stinks. So, obviously the next step for me was, he's not around. I take a shit in his laundry bag and everybody in the house, everybody's like, oh my God, Johnny shit in his fucking laundry bag. It's fucking hysterical. And so little things like that. And so I'm on the phone and I recall these things as I'm in the middle of these calls. And I'm like, Shelly, they got problems up there. They wedged this kid's leg between the rocks. They tried to snap his fucking leg. They're shitting in his laundry bag. And everything just, like I said, man. It's like that Jerky Boys magic.
Totally, it is.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Real quick, Johnny. One last question.
I love that name, and I think I love that name.
Yeah.
I love that name so much because one of my all-time, probably my favorite comedy of all time was The In-Laws with Peter Falk.
Okay. I don't think I'm familiar with it.
You guys watch the movie. It's the kind of movie you can't see once. Yep. You have to see it 100 fucking times. And every time you watch The In-Laws don't get the bullshit remake. Typical Hollywood bullshit remake.
Yeah.
It's Peter Falk and Alan Arkin, who was in my movie.
Oh, he's so good.
Right. Peter Falk, Alan Arkin, I believe it was 1980, 81, and it was The In-Laws. Peter fucking Falk is a comedic genius. And you remember him? Serpentine, Shelly, Serpentine.
Shelly.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons I love Shelly so much. But I'm telling you guys, if you get a chance, check out The In-Laws with Peter Falk. But great stuff.
Yeah, Johnny, one last question for me. I got to ask you this because I always wondered about this. Do you know a Frank Rizzo or a Saul Rosenberg or a Jack Torse? Are these characters just out of your comedic genius brain, or are they based on people you went to school with, families, coworkers? What?
It's funny that you asked me that because, for a long, long time, I've been saying this for a long time. When I do Frank Rizzo, that's my dad. Whenever you hear that character, whenever you hear me do Saul Rosenberg, that's my mom. So now, if you ever see me on Family Guy, I've been on Family Guy for 21 years, 20 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you see me on Family Guy, this is the funniest part about my mom. My mom had like these two different personalities. She was the funniest fucking woman you'd ever met. So if you listen to Saul Rosenberg, that was one way my mom would be. Like, Okay, so make sure I'll bring my shoes and my glasses so I have them. And and it was very just matter of factly, very low key. And then I didn't want to give up Sal Rosenberg for Family Guy because that's a Jerky Boys character.
Right.
So I said, what we'll do, I told, me and McFarlane got together and I said, what we'll do is come up with a new character. And I just kind of took the other side of my mom that wouldn't think twice to slap you in the fucking mouth. My mom was a tough broad. And if you stepped out of line or you back talked to her, you literally got smacked across the fucking mouth and her voice went like that. So that's where you hear that. Mort Goldman is so different. He's the other side. So Mort Goldman is more like, Peter, well, are you going to help me burn down that pharmacy or what? What's the matter with you? So it's a much it's a much more amped up, like ready to brawl kind of guy. And that's the difference between Mort Goldman on Family Guy and I think once or twice on Family Guy we actually referenced Sal Rosenberg in the Jerky Boys.
Yep.
But it's fun, meaning like that's his long lost cousin.
Right.
So that's awesome.
So that's the difference. But Sal Rosenberg, whenever you hear that character, I'm doing my mom. Whenever you hear Frank Rizzo, that's my father. Kissel, the character, the old man Kissel, that's my Uncle Vinny. If you look at Jerky Boys 5, Jerky Boys 5 was dedicated in 1998. My Uncle Vinny passed away, and I dedicated Jerky Boys 5 to his memory because Kissel is my Uncle Vinny, but Kamal actually does the character Kissel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
He used to go over to my uncle's place, and my uncle used to tell him all kinds of funny fucking stories. And that's a whole we'd be here for another 2 hours.
Oh yeah, right.
But that Kissel character, they're all people that I've known in my life. Jack Torres is another story. It was a person that my dad was trying to help out, but they all of these stories are there, and over the years they're in print. For Rolling Stone magazine, the stories are there, but you just, it's nice to be able to share it again. So fans get to say where these characters come from. I took these characters from real life and I literally turned them into cartoons.
Amazing. And they're fucking incredible.
Amazing.
Last one. Every time I'm like, that's it. No, I can't ask him. One more I'm going to ask you about, and that is a favorite of everybody's, and that's Testing for Jeopardy. That poor fucking bastard on the other line.
I love to Jeopardy.
Yeah.
We have people that write to us on our show, right? That are fans of yours, but they follow our podcast. Right. And his tagline is "Game Show Lovers."
Game Show Lovers. Well, who put that in the air? Well, it shouldn't say lovers because I didn't print the word fucking lover. That sounds like pussy shit to me. and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. That guy was a Vietnam vet. When we had to get the clearance from him, I think it was I gave him $500 for his best charity. And he turned out to be what a wonderful person. Yeah. And everybody, they shoot his lines at me all day long. I love it. So they'll say, why are you yelling and screaming? Hey, remember, if anybody ever asks you this, he doesn't say screaming. He says screaming.
Yeah.
Screaming.
Oh, that's
why
right.
Why are you yelling and cursing and screaming? And I'd say, whoa, what am I supposed to sound like, a fucking paradiddle? And I'm talking, and I said, Willie, if you can't whip out answers like that man, Mr. Trebek, is liable to go to a commercial break and punch your fucking mouth loose.
Yes.
And Alex Trebek got a hold of that. Somebody gave that to him and sent it to him. And he was one of the biggest Jerky Boys fans of all time.
That's amazing.
Fucking
That's amazing. Hey, last thing I'm going to leave you with, and this was one of the, when originally we talked, you're like, Kiss, tell us your Kiss connection, because people have no idea about this, and we'll finish it there. Listen, we're going to have you back, please, because we can do this fucking all day.
Oh,
but tell us your Kiss connection, please.
It's actually a very cool one.
Okay.
My mom, we were just talking about Sal Rosenberg inspiration. All the way back in the late 70s, I think it was, even late 70s, early 80s, there was a company in New York City. I don't remember the street it was on, maybe 80, 81, 81st Street, 79th Street. I don't remember where, but it was a company called Bells. And what they did was they were an answering service for celebrities. Oh. And because back then, this is before the advent of, answering machines at the house. And so this is right around the time answering machines were, coming in. So, but celebrities would have personal operators. So my mom was one of the operators at Bell's, and she handled John Travolta. She handled Brooke Shields, and one of her other biggest clients was Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And every Christmas, Gene Simmons would send my mom a life-size chocolate record from a chocolate company.
Wow.
And it was one of the coolest things. And at the time, Kiss was huge at that time.
Yes.
And my mom was like a celebrity in the house, because back then, nobody in the house was famous. And the Jerky Boys, so you're going way, way back. But Gene Simmons is sending my mom chocolate records that look like gold records. Amazing. As a Christmas present. So that's my little connection to Kiss.
Amazing.
Yep.
Johnny, this has been absolutely beyond amazing, man. Thank you so much for all your time, for all your stories. Our listeners love it. This is one of the biggest treats for Zeus and I that you could ever imagine.
Well, I want to thank you guys for having me on, and very important, most important all the time. I say this in every interview, the fans. I always want to give a big shout out to the fans. They deserve all the accolades, because the fans are what the Jerky Boys are here, because the people love the Jerky Boys.
Exactly.
Without the fans, there's nothing. And that goes for everybody. The fans always I always want to say thank you, and a big appreciation, shout out to the fans. And also, too, if I can, mention my cameos.
Plug away.
My cameos, people are going nuts for my cameos. You just go to cameo.com/Johnny Brennan. Yeah. And people, they go nuts for my cameos. Any character you want, I do any of the characters. I do whatever you want. Mort from Family Guy, any of the Jerky Boys characters, and any of the situations. I do all kinds of birthdays. You name the event. People do my cameos. They get my cameos just for me to fucking insult their fucking brothers or their cousins. and they love that shit. But
Johnny, you did that for me, for one of my best friends growing up, and his name is Mike. His father's name is Arthur. I think Arthur's like 70-something years old. About a year and a half ago, you did something about him boating and stuff. My buddy Mike bought it for him. He said his father still says that's the greatest gift he's ever got.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. And I do. My audience is the same way when I came in 40 years ago. My demographic goes from 5 years old up to 95 years old. Exactly. And people just love it. It's good stuff. And you know what? The Jerky Boys sometimes gets a bum rap for being filthy. The Jerky Boys is not filthy. There's only two characters that really curse, and it's Frank Rizzo every now and again, but there's never and the gay character. But there's never any gratuitous cursing.
Never.
You don't see me go there as Frank Rizzo and go, yeah, I'll rap your fucking motherfucking, I'll rap your fucking cop, you cocksucking motherfucker.
Yeah.
I don't do that shit.
Right.
It's all based on real situations, and the way my dad would speak, the way my character Jack would speak. It's all colorful shit, and that's why people love the Jerky Boys, because it's so fucking realistic. And so, but again, the Jerky Boys are not as blue as people once thought. Anheuser-Busch, Subway sandwiches, Lee Jeans Corporation. I've done commercials for all these people because they got it. They knew that it really, I could do anything. I don't have to be blue.
Now, where else can they find you besides your cameo? Is there a website and everything where they can buy anything?
Yeah, I'm refurbishing. It's the Jerky Boys store, the Jerky Boys store.
Yeah,
but I'm actually in the midst right now of getting revamping that. Yep. But it's still there. It's thejerkyboys.com. It's the Jerky Boys store. But the cameos right now are, people are just fucking going nuts over them. So as I do this and when I get everything else up and tidied up, I'll definitely come back and we'll give more of a plug on that.
Absolutely.
Love it.
We've done this show now 7 years. We've had KISS members on this show. We've had big rock stars. We've had all this stuff.
Who did you have from KISS?
Ace. And Ace. Bruce Kulick, Ace Frehley, and Bruce Kulick. We've met Gene. We've met Tommy and Eric and
I love Ace. Let me tell you something. I'm a guitar player. I'm a guitar player, and I'm a drummer. As a guitar player, Ace comes from the greatest era in my book. Of guitar players. All those glam rock guys. Mick Ronson, Mick Ralphs. Ace Frehley. All of those guys from that era, in my opinion, they had the most feel when they played guitar. Jimmy Page, all these guys. There was so much feel there, and Ace he's part of that group. Yeah. And Eric Carr, just a little side note, he's right from my backyard up here. He's from Middletown.
Middletown.
So Eric Carr was from Middletown, New York, and a small world, huh?
Yeah, right. Amazing.
Big time. So what I wanted to say is, like, this is my favorite episode I've ever done on this show.
It's amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
and we're
Johnny.
on a KISS podcast, but this is the one that I'm like, I can't wait for our listeners to hear, because they get us, and this is more of a personal episode.
Yes.
And so, Johnny, we can't thank you enough. We can't wait to get you back, and much love to you. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, guys. I want to say thank you again. And again, thank you to the fans. I really appreciate you guys having me on. And cameo.com/Johnny Brennan. Thanks again, guys. Thank you.
Till next time. Peace out, Girl Scout. Oh, you over here? Yeah, I'm over here now.
Zeus, it's me. I want to end the show now.
Jesus Christ, Tom. Jesus Christ. Let's end the show now while we got the muscle.